I set.
About ready?
Okay.
Let's go.
Your assessment of what you've heard so far from this expert.
I think that Jonathan Priest is an excellent witness. I think that he did more damage for the prosecution than he helped them, and I think that he will damage their case further when I complete my cross-examination.
It sounded like that the prosecution continues to want to disregard the U.S. Supreme Court ruling, the Graham versus Connor case. But did I hear correctly that he said that that is a cornerstone for use of force policy?
That's absolutely correct. That standard hasn't changed in 25 years. It's still the standard. It's the gold standard. It's the standard that all agencies use. It's the standard we use in the state of Texas. But as you heard from the beginning, the state in this case wants the court to set a new standard. They want to change the standard. What we want is the court not to legislate from the bench. We want the court to follow the well-established law in Graham versus Connor, and in doing so, we believe the court will acquit our client.
But Priest said that in his opinion, Willis should have waited. He should have stopped and assessed. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I think Willis made the right decision under the circumstances known to him at the time. I also believe that their witness, Mr. Priest, is operating under limited facts. I don't believe he's reviewed all the evidence.
Why do you think he's wrong in that Priest? Why do you think Priest is wrong in saying that Willis should have waited and assessed the situation?
I think that we have factors in our favor that he can't testify to. I think that we have some forced science factors and the biomechanics of the human body, and I think that our expert witness next week will clarify those things, and it will be clear that Daniel Willis could have taken those actions, did take those actions, and should have taken those actions which justify his use of force.
Can you say what the Supreme Court standard says?
The Graham versus Connor decision states that you have to give room for tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving circumstances, and you have to judge the officer's actions on objective reasonableness from their point of view. You can't go in later and look at their intent or what you would have done or what would have been better. You have to look at what the officer was facing. That you have to give room for that decision matrix because we're all humans. How many times this morning did Mr. Priest say there's a human factor involved? There's not a manual that covers every single situation, and that's what we're facing in this case.
Does it matter that Willis says that he believes or perceived that there was a gun, even though there may not have been a gun?
His belief is the most important factor in this case, and that's why subsequent Supreme Court decisions have said that the officer's belief of his danger is a huge factor to weigh in whether he was objectively reasonable. And you have to look at the totality. We've got armed subjects, we've got fighting, we've got intoxication, we have darkness, and we have an officer who had been on the street for 9 months. All of those things factor into whether Daniel Willis acted reasonably or not, whether he perceived what the courts call apparent danger.
It seems like much of your line of questioning is pointing out that Priest may not be the best expert, in your opinion, on this case. Why do you think that is?
I think Jonathan Priest is an expert in crime scene and investigations, possibly somewhat in officer-involved shootings. But this case boils down to 3, 4, 5 seconds of decision-making, which boils down to the biomechanics of human science. And he is not an expert in that field. We have an expert in that field, and he's going to testify on Tuesday. And that's who they needed to get in this case, and they got the wrong expert.